Hi, and welcome to the show. Rate and review at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today on the show, we have Miguel Villagra. He is a hospitalist. His Kevin MD article is titled Character, Not Cash, The Ingredients of a Happy and Meaningful Life. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, briefly share your story and journey to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah. I'm an internal medicine physician who was born and raised in Nicaragua. I went to my medical school there and did internal medicine there for some time. I did academic and hospital medicine, and then I moved to United States for restart over again my life here. I have dedicated my life to hospital medicine, which I still enjoy a lot. A little bit before, but during COVID also, I have started to do some telemedicine work. So I'm also do a tele-hospitalist work in some rural areas of Texas, which I enjoy a lot because there's a lot of Hispanic community that now I'm serving. And the last but not least, I have dedicated also lately to do a little bit of coaching. I'm coaching also other physicians that struggle with burnout. And I'm very excited and passionate about that as well, Kevin.
So tell me about tele-hospitalist work. What's that like?
You know, it's a very interesting experience. At first, I was kind of dread by, but I guess the push of COVID, you know, how changed the way we practice medicine and the fear of having another pandemic in the future prompted me to kind of pull the trigger and doing it, you know. It's interesting how the technology has improved to an extent that you can actually offer really good care through a virtual visits from home, you know, including how you can even hear heart sounds, lung sounds remotely. You know, I think the technology has been so good that all you need now is the strong Wi-Fi signal and also good headphones to listen to.
So how do you round teleradiology? Like, do you have some type of robot, some type of surrogate who can do heart sounds and physical exams? So I'm curious about that process.
Absolutely. You know, how it works and the way I do it, I have two screens. One, I have the EMR open so I can see the labs on the patients and things like that. And then the other end, I have the camera connected to a portal where there is a nurse in the other end that will guide this little device that they carry on, and you interact with the patient. Interesting, I have not have any issues even with patients with lack of hearing, which that was one of my fears. They can definitely listen, or you have the same challenge that you will have in a regular physical visit anyway. And when the time comes for you to do a physical exam, they will help you and guide you. You know, they have this machine, they will put the stethoscope, and you are basically listening in real time through your headphones, the lung sounds and heart sounds. The only thing, you know, it's an abdominal physical exam. That's the part a little bit more tricky. You know, you get the nurse to kind of help you with that, but that would be kind of the main challenge, I will say, in my personal experience while doing it so far.
All right. We'll have to have another episode talking about that. I find that fascinating. But we'll talk about your Kevin MD article that you wrote earlier. It's titled Character, Not Cash, The Ingredients of a Happy and Meaningful Life. Now, how did this article come together?
You know, it came from my own personal experience. You know, I have this recurrent theme I have seen by physicians, but also my own personal life that I'll describe as the arrival fallacy. Is that idea of when you get to this point, or when you have something, you're gonna be happy, you know. And in my personal life, I did it while I was holding a leadership position as a medical director. I was in that position where if I get to this point, I'm gonna be happy, and so on and so forth. Or if I have certain income, right, I'm gonna be happy, or certain amount of money. Usually we're talking about material things. But to be honest with you, even though I'm all for goal setting, which is quite important, and I definitely advise any physicians, you know, to set their goals financially, professional, and so on, we cannot ignoring also that we should also focus on enjoy the journey and the now moment. And that's what the article is coming from. That idea of you need to try to find happiness in the now, not only and enjoy the process to get to the goals that you are setting, you know.
So how does this relate to physicians specifically? Give us an example or story, either
Yeah.
from your own life or from, your coaching.
Yeah, I can give you two actually. The first one will be once again in my personal life. You know, I'm coming from a very poor country, right? So we moved to United States to have a better life. So it is that idea of getting to get more And when we get more, you're going to be more happy. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you, Kevin, when I was doing all this journey of a medical director and things like that, each time I was holding a higher position, having a higher income, you will say I'm closing to the definition of success I have at the time. But my quality of life, though, it was just going down. You know, it was this a complete opposite of the direction my career was going through. And I recently have actually a client that was a similar situation, but where we're talking about money. He was OCD about getting to $1 million of wealth, you know, and that was he was just all for it, you know, and it was very specific. That's my goal. That's my financial target. But you know, he was working, I would say 30 days of the month. He was working at least 28 of the days of the month. He was definitely ignoring his family. He ended up having a lot of personal issues with his family and things like that, which I'm not getting into details out of privacy, but definitely the point being that he was not enjoying his life, you know, even though he was getting to his goal. And that's what the article, you know, how can you find that meaning in life in the now moment? You know, you cannot ignore the process of any steps of your life. You know, to me, it's like chapters, you know, your life is in different chapters and you need to enjoy each of them, you know, and that's what the article referred to.
So what kind of questions can physicians ask themselves to describe that relationship between money and happiness? Because that's going to be a different answer for every physician, right? Every physician is going to have different values. So what kind of questions can they ask themselves to better define where they are on that money happiness spectrum?
Right. Yeah. You know, there is a simple, powerful question and it's the why, you know, why you're doing it and what are your priorities in life? What is important for you? And that why you're doing it and that priority or what is important for you, you need to see if they match. And you will be surprised how many times you see there is a complete mismatch on what your priorities are and why you're doing all this.
So what's an example of that?
You know, I mean, a simple example will be, you know, like, I mean, if going back to the money part, right? If your goal is to have X amount of money, right? But your priorities are to be with your kids and your wife, and then you need to work 28 shifts a month in order to get to that point, there is clearly a mismatch between what you want and what you are going to get or what you need to do to accomplish that goal. And you know, that has been a part of the change for me, you know, because again, as I was going back to my own personal example, you know, I was so busy at the time, you know, and I was chew and swallow and spit out by corporate. That's the best way to describe what I was at the time in that position, in those position. I was just unhappy, you know, I was ignoring my life and I have to put a break, you know, Kevin, and say, okay, what are my priorities? If I want to be with my family, sometimes you need to set or make decisions that sometimes are tough. And I'm going to give you a tough decision I make myself. I give up that job. I quit that job without even having another job at the time, you know, and I was able to, and I'm so grateful that I was able to get the job I was seeking in a short period of time. But I reached to that breaking point, you know, where I was like, if I don't do something about it, I'm not finding enjoyment and fulfillment in my life anymore.
Now, what was it like during that breaking point? Because a lot of physicians may not know what that point is where they have to make those difficult decisions. Now, for you,
Yeah.
you know, you said that you quit the job without having another job in hand. What was that breaking point for you? Just describe what that moment or days were like for you.
Yeah. So they were busy, extended hours, but it was also, you know, and I think as a physicians, you know the value you have, all the training and everything. It's easier for physicians to ignore all the signs of red flags of this is happening. For me, I was getting to a breaking point where I was already checking the DSM manual to see what psychiatry disorder I might have, you know, because I was so happy, you know, and I didn't fulfill any of those criteria. And I said, I do need help. I don't feel well, but I definitely don't have any psychiatry disorder, you know. So when I started looking and digging into it, I said, this is definitely not good for me because I don't know what will come next, you know. That was kind of the eye opener. It was very difficult for me, I mean.
Now, What's the relationship between that arrival fallacy and physician burnout? Do you find that a lot of physicians who strive for, say, a certain dollar amount, do you think that's a contributor perhaps to the increasing frequency of clinician burnout?
Burnout is definitely a phenomenon that is work related,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
And our healthcare system, is so chaotic, disorganized, and disconnected. And definitely we cannot ignore that.
yeah.
However, I think that part of the problem too is that idea of how you react to your external environment. And that's the part, that we need to work a lot. I work a lot on our mind, on our thoughts. And I think that a lot of physicians had this struggle, how they react to their working environment. So, and it's gonna be, I can tell you, changing our healthcare system needs to change. There's no doubt about. But definitely, physicians that are coming from a place of enjoyment and fulfillment are the ones that will change that. Because if you're coming from resentment, frustration, victimhood, you're definitely not going to be in a position to change much.
So, for those physicians who are listening to you right now, what's the immediate next step that they should take?
Well, I will say first, it's okay to be vulnerable
Mm,
because a lot of the pushback I heard from physicians is that vulnerability becomes a sign of weakness. And I ignored that myself. I have those signs that I was not doing well, not happy, and I needed to find. And sometimes the only option is to do a change, like I
mm.
did. But I'm not saying that works all the time. Maybe what you need is just to work a little bit on your mind, on your mindset. Instead of necessarily changing your job or position. But definitely being vulnerable, it's okay. And if you feel that you need help, seeking that help is definitely advisable. And once again, there's always this paradigm: who comes first, the patient or the doctor? And I always make the analogy, of the fly. They always will tell you, put your oxygen mask first
Mhm.
before you can help somebody else. And we ignore that simple fact all the time.
And my final question, tell us some take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Yeah, I will piggyback on the fact that if you feel you need help, there are great resources out there for physicians, and there's a lot of organizations that help physicians that are struggle with their wellness.
Mhm.
Take care of your, I will say, take care of your mind, of your thoughts, of your body. Exercise, diet, etc. So don't ignore those simple things, even of your sleep. A lot of physicians don't have even the time to sleep enough or well. So don't ignore those simple things for your wellness will be my advice and take at home. That sometimes we take for granted because we're in this life and everything goes automatic, and a lot of distractions.
Miguel, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.